I liked the bit in the press conference where Lewis was talking about he couldn't remember or pretended not to remember what happened last Melbourne Grand Prix when he was forced to retire, and he was sitting next to Carlos Sainz, who won the Melbourne Grand Prix last year despite just having an appendix out, and Carlos Sainz very calmly and very coolly in a Carlos Sainz way just went, I remember.
Of course he bloody remembered.
I remember what happened, you seat stealer. You stole my red overalls, you prick.
Oh, poor Carlo.
Welcome back to The Fast and the Curious, the podcast that speaks to the biggest names in the sport. We debrief the races and we preview them as well. So let's do it. And it is Race Week!
Woo!
Woo! Yay!
I need one of those.
Yeah, we need a party blower or a throwback to a few World Cups ago, a vuvuzela. If anyone's got them, please blow them now.
I'm Betty Glover, team principal. Greg James is here. This season, everyone says, is going to be the most exciting season that we have ever witnessed. Don't want to big it up too much, but Greg, on a scale of 1 to 10, how excited are you?
I am at an 8.3 on the Richter scale, and that's because you need room. You need room to go up. You need room to go down. You don't want to be at a 10 before the race has even happened. We just need to simmer, just a little simmer. We don't need to go any further. Don't need to boil over just yet. And we need to connect to our good friend and Formula One geek legend, Christian Hewgill, who is down under in Melbourne. Christian, what level are you at out of 10? Are you simmering or are you boiling? Or are you just lukewarm?
Greg, I can confirm from Australia, I am currently at a 9.1.
He's nearly boiling. Okay.
Oh, he's getting
nearly
there.
boiling.
He's getting there.
Good. This is good.
Nearly boiling.
You've got the bubbles under the skin. They're getting ready to go.
I should see a doctor for that by the sounds of it.
Yeah, no, it doesn't sound good, does it? Why are you that high already? Because we're recording this on Thursday evening UK time, Friday morning Aussie time.
Why am I like this already? Undoubtedly being here is one of the reasons I am excited. We should say, because we've got lots of new listeners, because we did some interviews with Formula One drivers that went down well at the start of the season, that I'm lucky enough to work in a Formula One doing another podcast. Can you believe there are other Formula One podcasts? For a long time, I thought this was the only one, but it's unbelievable.
Same.
So
Best,
I know.
but...
So I do get to go to some races, which is brilliant. But this particular race is the race I have always wanted to go to, because it was always, when I was growing up falling in love with the sport, it was always the first race of the season, and I would get up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and it was the most exciting thing in the world because it was a new season. And for various reasons, for a one-off again, Australia is back to being the first race of the season. I get to be here. It's like stepping into the telly. It's unbelievable. And if that wasn't enough, I think we're in for a season where anyone could win it. Well, not anyone, Sauber aren't going to win it, but where most people could win it because the field seems close. So it's just extremely exciting all round.
You've been into the paddock already, I hope. I know you've been around the circuit. You've been running around the circuit, which is exciting, and I was very jealous about that because it looked beautiful. So tell us what's the paddock gossip?
The paddock gossip is that McLaren are quick and might be, emphasis on might, we don't know, but might be the only team capable of winning this Grand Prix.
Oh, right.
Wow.
McLaren do seem quick. The paddock gossip is that Red Bull possibly aren't quick and are struggling a little bit, and that the pre-season testing didn't go as well as they'd hoped, and they might be playing catch-up. Red Bull and Ferrari and Mercedes, not too sure where they're going to shake out. So, but the great thing is, until qualifying happens, until the race happens, because one lap pace can be different to race pace, we don't know. Like, it's nobody in that paddock is saying for sure, I am I will put my mortgage on the fact it's going to be a McLaren win. We just don't know. Whereas going into previous seasons, you'd have put your mortgage, your neighbour's mortgage, your grand's mortgage on a Red Bull win in the first race of the season. So it is really exciting.
You've sort of made me bubbling under the skin even more now, Christian, after just even talking about it. But one of the things that I'm probably most excited about, and if you listen to our last episode, then you will know that I've got a good feeling about Oscar Piastri. But he could, if he wins the Australian Grand Prix, become the first Australian to win the Australian Grand Prix. Obviously, since it was part of the World Championships in 1985 or whatever. But that is a really big possibility, isn't it, Christian?
It is. So I've been in Australia. So I'm recording this Friday morning, my time. I've been in Australia since Sunday morning, my time. And I know from being an F1 fan for years and years that Australia loves its Formula One. It's got lots of legends in the past. And when you walk around the circuit, the roads commemorate the legends. So this is not a country that has only just fallen in love with F1 as it's grown in recent years. There is strong heritage of Formula One in this country. The Aussies love their F1. And in recent years, we've had Mark Webber, we've had Daniel Ricciardo, drivers who are really capable of winning Grand Prix, but they've just never managed to do so. They call it the Aussie curse. And therefore, we would find it impossible not to feel pressure everywhere you go, be it in Sydney, where I was before, in Melbourne, here, there's F1. Oscar Piastri's face greets you as soon as you get into both airports on billboards. There's something called the Melbourne Walk when you get into the paddock, which is a lovely thing where fans line the walk into the paddock. So you can get stuff signed by the drivers. They're all holding Oscar Piastri's giant face, getting him to sign his own face on cards. And yet, all of this pressure builds, simmers, bubbles under the skin, Betty Glover. And yet, when I've not spoken to Oscar this weekend yet, but I have seen him a few times, you see him wandering round, and he's just so, Greg, to use your words from our very first recording, still and calm. And I did speak to the Tom Stallard, Oscar's race engineer. I had a chat with Tom yesterday, and Oscar's signed a new McLaren contract, which is amazing. It's the big news out the weekend so far. And Tom said that A, he felt like a bit of a proud dad, and B, the key to Oscar's success is that calmness that I've witnessed already this weekend. So he just seems to be lapping it all up, absorbing it. There's no reason he can't win this race. No reason at all.
There's something very exciting going on with Oscar, as we've talked about endlessly really on this podcast, but it is worth just hammering home the point that this guy didn't really exist 2 years ago. And now he is on the way to becoming a very, very significant Australian sports person. And we know how excited Australia gets about their sports.
Oh, they love it.
They are competitive. And it's really amazing to see, actually. It's amazing to see the backing that McLaren have of he was an unknown. He was unknown 2 years ago. He really was. And now he's winning. Now they're giving him extra deals. The confidence that shows is it's rare, and it's really exciting. And we've got a real star in our hands, and I'm very excited for this season. And it's just a cool thing to have two drivers that are confident and very much sort of capable of winning races and championships. That's what sets McLaren apart. They've got two drivers who could win.
And the excitement, Greg, I think from a McLaren perspective, is there are two drivers who are not only capable of winning races now, but everything I've said about Lando bar the Aussies, but everything I've said about Oscar bar the Aussie stuff, you could say about Lando. The excitement and the feeling is these are two drivers who have not anywhere near reached their potential yet. And I think that is truly exciting for future years, but also for the battle between them this year. You look back to like the battle between Hamilton and Rosberg, which was just sensational. And we were in a situation where, yes, only a Mercedes could win. But it didn't matter because the battle between those two were fantastic. You could be in for another one of those sort of situations this year.
I think we probably will be. But also, I was going to make the point that that Oscar Piastri is still only 23 years old, which is so young in the grand scheme of things, considering, you know, the amount of media attention that is around him now, the pressure that is starting to ramp up on him now. He won 2 Grand Prix last season. So it's sort of, in a weird way, like expected that he can do this. It's expected that he can win the Australian Grand Prix now. It wasn't last season, but it is now. He's got his face everywhere, like you say, Christian. He's doing like burger adverts and stuff, isn't he?
Yeah.
That's when you know you're famous.
That's when you know you're famous. You've made it when you're doing the burger adverts.
Just ask Stormzy.
And now he's signed this really long contract. Like, it must be a lot to process. And I wonder how he is going to deal with this pressure. I mean, I can imagine we all think easily.
Well, as I say, I spoke to Tom Stallard yesterday, and a race engineer is the person closest to Oscar at the most important time when they're in the car. And Tom's confidence in Oscar oozes. It absolutely oozes. And Tom emphasises that ability to soak it up. You see him walking through the paddock. He just looks so at ease with his surroundings, signing autographs for fans, taking pictures, being the same smiley, warm, jovial self that he is with us. And yet he then has that ability to look at the overtake like he pulled off on Lando Norris. It's early in the morning here, forgive me. I think it was the Italian Grand Prix last year where we've seen it on Drive to Survive, where Lando said, if I'd have known he was going to do that, I wouldn't have given him the chance. This calmness subsides to become the most steely, determined, and most importantly, fast racer. You know, that speed has always been there for minute one. What hasn't been there for minute one is the ability to manage tyres, is racecraft, is knowing how to plan your race in your own head. That has come over time. And the exciting thing for me is that, you know, the level up with Oscar going into his second season from his first was huge. Waiting for that level up this year, seeing that level up, it might come in the first race, is just a really exciting prospect. Greg, you're right. There is. We sometimes get a bit accused on this podcast of overhyping Oscar because we've obviously got a relationship with him. That is not the case. I don't sit here on Formula One podcasts on Formula One things I do, saying, "Oh, we definitely do. We definitely do. Absolutely do." But I don't sit here, you know, hyping people up for the sake of hyping people up. I genuinely believe, Formula One genuinely believes, that this is a guy who can, you know, challenge for world championships. The thing is, so could Lando, and that's why it's so exciting.
And Lando is still only 25 years old whilst we're going on about ages. I turned 30 last week, so I'm obsessed with how young people are at the moment.
Granny. Well,
dealing with it well.
Happy birthday for last week. Yeah, you're talking endlessly about ages, which is now I was like, what's she talking about? And now I understand because you're having a crisis.
Makes sense.
No, but to be fair, like look at them, like 23 and 25, and they're off doing
all right,
this.
Yeah, but like this is what happens. You go, for all our footballers young.
I have 2 words.
Jamie Vardy.
Kimi Antonelli.
Oh right.
No, not Jamie Vardy. Kimi Antonelli.
I also thought he was going to say Jamie Vardy.
No.
Shall we move on? Because the thing that really perked my interest when you were talking about sort of the talking points in Australia, Christian, is Red Bull not being at their best. And Max Verstappen's made some comments as well, hasn't he, about them not being the fastest. What is actually happening there? Because I feel like I've missed out on this little bit of news and info.
Yeah, you've not missed out on anything, really. It's just that in the test, there was mixed signals coming out of Red Bull. Some people were saying, no, they are going to be right up close. And some people were saying they've not had as good a test as they would have liked. And that's the thing with pre-season. Some people have got one reading on it, some people have got another. And as I said earlier in the pod, until you get to qualifying in the race, you don't really know. The whispers... Now, Formula One has moved from test to race one, and there's been a couple more weeks of chatter since then, is that Red Bull aren't too happy with the car post-testing. Betty, you're absolutely right. Some of Max's interviews have suggested the same. He's been really very blunt. And the thing is, Max doesn't play games. Max is a straight shooter, so to speak. And Max turning around and saying, we're not in contention to win this weekend, I personally would tend to believe him. I mean, who knows? The thing is as well, Sunday, there might be rain, so who knows? And also, I go back to the McLaren rule of they were nowhere near winning races until round 5 of last season, Miami, where they bought a massive upgrade. So just because Red Bull might be struggling at the moment, it doesn't mean they'll be struggling in China, in Japan, in Bahrain, in Saudi, in Miami in a few races' time. But I think at the moment, I'd be surprised in a dry, in inverted commas, normal race. I'd be surprised if we saw a Red Bull win.
What's the Ferrari feeling, which is my new feature? It's time for the Ferrari feeling.
Oh, I like
now,
that.
I saw an interview with Lewis Hamilton, and the comms, as boring people say, are that he's going, I'm not really listening to outside pressure. All the pressure I have is from within. I'm not bothered about how it looks. He is, though. He's got to be thinking about Formula One fans. He's got to think about his place in history. Of course, he's thinking about all those things. I feel like that's just bluster. That's just sort of PR bluster. Of course, you're going to be hyper aware that this is the big move. This is the big risk. This is the gamble. What are the Ferrari feelings around everything? And do people think that he's going to beat even Charles Leclerc?
Okay, the Ferrari feelings, there's a lot to get at there. Number one, I'm not sure how quick they are. I'm not sure anyone knows how quick they are. I don't think they'll be as quick as McLaren, where they sort of filter out in comparison to Red Bull and Mercedes will be the interesting one. Greg, to your point, I think I agree with your assessment of that 100%. All the pressure we talked about there with Oscar is 3 times that for Lewis, because in my view, he's the only driver in this sport who supersedes the sport. He is bigger than Formula One. He is godlike. He is a mythical figure, to use a term you use a lot, Greg. And therefore, him going to Ferrari, biggest driver in the world, going to biggest team in the world, I think the only way he can communicate is saying, I've just got to get out onto track. But of course, he'll be thinking about that. But my reading of it is, Lewis Hamilton, we have seen throughout his Formula One career, is quickest on track when he is mentally happy and content off it. That went at Mercedes last year. That relationship expired. I think Lewis underestimated how difficult it would be to do a full season knowing he was leaving. Lewis seems so much happier, calmer, confident in himself, in the people around him. So to answer your question, I think we're going to see a better Lewis Hamilton than last year. I think we're going to see a Lewis Hamilton that on race day can compete with Charles Leclerc, definitely. I still think, I said this in our pre-season review podcast, and Lewis, go prove me wrong, it is qualifying, which has been the tiniest chink in Lewis's armour over the years. And I don't think it'd be a problem with pretty much anyone else in the grid, but he's up against Charles Leclerc, who is, in my view, the single best one-lap qualifier in Formula One. That's where he's going to find it very tricky. If he's 2 tenths behind Charles, with how close it could be, Charles could be P2 on the grid, Lewis could be P6, and that gives you a lot to do on a Sunday.
I think almost there's more pressure on Charles Leclerc in a way than there is Lewis Hamilton, because Lewis knows what he's doing by making this move. He will have thought about this for a whole year and a bit. Charles Leclerc is now, his teammate is Lewis Hamilton. Imagine a driver like Lewis Hamilton joining your team, and he's going to have to perform like he's never performed before to sort of maintain his status in the team, right? That's quite a lot of pressure.
I hadn't read it like that at all. I think that's such an interesting point, Betty. I hadn't really thought of it like that. I think that's
a really good point, Betty.
I genuinely hadn't thought of that way round. But yeah, I guess he's got more to prove. But does Charles just not go and do Charles things and just go like, yeah, whatever?
Probably.
Whatever. It's okay. It's not a problem.
Arsene Wenger driving for Ferrari this season.
No, Arsene Wenger is a little deeper like this. He's a bit more like that.
Sounds a bit Toto though, that.
No, but Toto is more German, is more Austrian like that. That's it. And then Arsene Wenger is more like that. He's a bit more like this, and then a bit more like this. And then you got Toto, who is more like that, and Lewis, and we have Kimi Antonelli in the car. Anyway, sorry, what we say? I don't know what we're talking about. I'm very tired, Christian.
And we bring in Jeremy Vine, who is also into Formula One.
Oh, God.
But no, I love your point, Betty. I love that point because I hadn't thought of that perspective. But yes, that's sort of, it's the lesser thought of storyline here, isn't it?
Yeah, it is. It really is. And I've been thinking about it quite a lot.
Lewis Hamilton has already won 7 world championships. This is a last hurrah. That legacy will remain regardless of what happens at Ferrari, even if it does go wrong and it proves to be one move too far. Whereas if you're Charles Leclerc and you are comprehensively beaten by Lewis Hamilton, a Lewis Hamilton who some believe is past his peak, I don't on a race day, but some do, then you've got to go into the rest of your F1 career. And does it take the gloss off? And do Ferrari, when they're looking for Lewis's replacement, think we need someone else? So, Betty, you're absolutely right. But Greg, you're also right. All Charles can do is do Charles things and just keep going. I think my gut instinct is that somehow in the ether of Formula One, I think both drivers will come out of this fairly well. This partnership is my view.
I liked the bit in the press conference where Lewis was talking about he couldn't remember or pretended not to remember what happened last Melbourne Grand Prix when he was forced to retire, and he was sitting next to Carlos Sainz, who won the Melbourne Grand Prix last year despite just having an appendix out, and Carlos Sainz very calmly and very coolly in a Carlos Sainz way just went, I remember.
Of course he bloody remembered.
I remember what happened, you seat stealer. You stole my red overalls, you prick.
Oh, poor Carlos. Must say, Carlos is dealing with it all very well.
The actual Carlos is dealing with it very, very well.
Go on, do us a Carlos Sainz impression, Greg.
I haven't quite got Carlos. You know what? I'll work on Carlos. I want to get it right for you. I'll do it. I'll do it when he wins the Melbourne Grand Prix. Because he might do. Why the hell not?
Well, that would be a big shot.
A big wow from Williams. How about that? Let's assess that. Let's move on to them. So Carlos Sainz, Alex Albon. That's a great pairing. That's an amazing pairing of drivers. That's exciting.
I think they will look to improve on where they finished last year and look to go 1 or maybe 2 places higher in the Constructors' World Championship. But I think realistically that's all they've got. However, I was having a conversation with someone in the paddock yesterday with the driver lineup, with the shameless focus on the future from James Vowles, with the fact they've got Mercedes engines. I don't think there's any reason why they can't be up there fighting well in the midfield and well within occasional podiums next year. But this year it would take a miracle for Carlos Sainz to win the Australian Grand Prix again. Williams are nowhere near, but I do think they're slightly happier than they were this time last year. But the thing is, miracles can and do happen, because if there's one thing I've got to know about Australia on my first ever visit, guys, is that the weather is absolutely barking mad and can change in an instant. So, and there is rain forecast on Sunday. And when rain comes at the Australian Grand Prix, bloody anything could happen. So all of this, we're sat here going, McLaren look quick. Rain is the great leveller. The reason rain is the great leveller is because it becomes much harder for the cars to grip up, and downforce becomes a rarer commodity. The best Formula One cars are the ones that produce the most downforce to stick the car to the track. When the rain comes, it removes levels of downforce and it opens up the field massively. So if we get rain, it becomes a lot more down to driver skill. It becomes a lot more down to getting your pit stops right to change onto the right tyres at the right time. It becomes a lot more down to setup, which teams have set the car up for wet weather. And then it is anyone's game. And we've seen in the past, mad wins in the rain where the likes of Williams has won. And one thing I will say is we're about due. It's not happened for a while. One of those real freak results. So why not this weekend, and why not a Williams?
It is saying 70% rain in Melbourne on Sunday. So, and not just rain, guys, thunder and rain. And we've got 6 rookies that are starting the new season. So anything can happen. I'm thinking red flags. Every flag.
It's going to be amazing. It's going to be like an 8-year-old's go-karting party. It's going to be mad. That's what we want. That's what we want from it. We want it to be fun. The season is about to start. We're very excited for it. The new titles were released today, where George Russell, the big talking point, actually, we should have talked about this at the start of the episode. The big talking point is that he has finally realised that the arms outstretched thing is his thing.
Yeah.
Has he done it?
That is the most famous thing about him.
He's done it
again. He has done it properly. He's parodying himself. He is owning the joke. He realizes that that's iconic, and I'm so proud of him that he has realized that that's the thing that everyone knows about him.
Yes,
and
George.
That's funny.
Yes.
So that's
agreed.
back. He's posting it on his Instagram, so that's exciting. Jack Doohan got half a nanosecond on the intro. So it was like, and
this guy.
But very exciting to see the lineup change, because that's changed obviously because they put it in order of how people finished last season. So that's cool, and we're ready to go. We're going to be here, by the way, with a debrief immediately after the race finishes on Sunday morning. So make sure you subscribe and come back for more. Before we go, a reminder that our competition to win a pair of tickets to the 2025 Crypto.com Miami Grand Prix is still open. You can enter right now. It closes at the start of qualifying on Saturday. Please follow us on Instagram. Tag a mate under the post announcing the competition. You might have to scroll back a couple. It's Fast Curious Pod on Instagram. DM us on Instagram with your guess for the fastest lap of the Australian Grand Prix. And then the two closest guesses will be invited on the pod for a game of Beat the Christian. So, Christian, we need the terms and conditions now, please.
Greg, thank you. The tickets do not include travel or accommodation. They're for tickets to the Grand Prix only. The race is from the 2nd to the 4th of May. If you're under 18, you can still enter, but you have to bring someone over the age of 18 with you. For example, 27 would be an acceptable age. Entries are open right now and will close at the start of qualifying in Australia on Saturday the 16th of March. And your lap time guess needs to look like how it looks like on the telly. For example, 1 minute 45.912. That's to the thousandth of a second, maths fans. The full terms and conditions are on our Instagram. That's Fast Curious Pod. And May, I say, from Australia, good luck.
Go on then. Betty, predictions. Go on then. Just, I just want a race winner. That's all I want from you. Go. Instinctively,
Okay,
go.
race winner, Oscar in Australia. And I'm not biased. It's just he's in Australia, crowd, etc.
Christian.
Lando Norris.
And me, personally, Carlos Sainz.
That'd be epic.
If I see
What
him
a
today...
story.
Oh, by the way, I should say, I got a very warm smile and a hello from Carlos through the paddock yesterday. So if I see him today, I will pass that on that Fast and Curious is tipping in for the win. Well, a third of Fast and Curious is tipping in for the win.
Excellent.
And tell him from me, just say this. Just go, blue looks good on you. That's
No,
what I'm gonna say.
don't do that. Don't do that, Christian. That's weird.
And that prick stole your red overalls.
We'll be back on Sunday for a full race debrief. Get the coffee ready. Get the matchsticks ready to hold your eyeballs open. Thanks for listening. Remember to subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. We're on YouTube as well. You can watch us on there in glorious Technicolor and sort of shaky HD from Melbourne. But until Sunday, sort of lunchtime-ish, it's goodbye from the Fast and the Curious. Goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye.